Fernando, you remember the name Molly Benetti, but from her talk at CVAS, she talked about how kids get told, "Oh, you're not tough." Well, it might not be the same tough that they're used to because they didn't grow up on a farm doing things, but they grew up in a single parent household and they had to be the dad or the mom of the house at age 8 or 9, right? Like it's just I don't know. It struck me to the core, especially because of the population that I work with here at Towson.
So I'll start with this. I've been very fortunate to have worked with some phenomenal, and when I say phenomenal, I mean phenomenal strength and conditioning coaches. And it's funny because almost it's almost in a lot of ways scripted. Where the strength and conditioning coach will say to me like, "Oh, I'm just a dumb meathead," or "Oh, I'm just a guy who pushes weights," or something. Meanwhile, you get past that 30-second self-deprecating statement, and they are just brilliant, brilliant minds looking for competitive advantages and constantly downloading information. They are just curators of knowledge. So I've always had a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for strength and conditioning coaches because of two reasons. One, to a T, everyone I've ever worked with was way smarter than they wanted to admit. And then two, the strength and conditioning room is like the barber shop of every pro team I've ever worked for. If you want to hear truth, if you want to chop it up, if you want to establish a relationship with the players, if you want to know what's really going on, when a strength and conditioning coach invites you as a psychologist, when a strength and conditioning coach invites you into the weight room just to kind of hang out with the fellas, that's when magic happens. So now let's go back to the AIQ and where some strength and conditioning coaches that I've worked with. It's amazing because you ask like where did the AIQ come from and what is the AIQ? So let's kind of put some ground rules for those that might not know. This is going to be a way oversimplified definition, but I see an athletic comprehensive profile consists of 4 buckets. So bucket number 1 is the physical measurable: size, strength, speed, agility. The stuff that the strength and conditioning coaches really can maximize their measurements on, as well as maximize their optimal outputs. Second bucket is experience. So it's about getting somebody from a well-known system. So like in American sports, you have programs like Alabama and Georgia that just produce high-level talent. And so if you're going, hey, our system, like the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFL team, the Philadelphia Eagles, just drafted a whole bunch of Georgia Bulldogs. And one of the reasons why is their defensive system, their scheme is very similar. So they're going like, hey, if we grab guys from Georgia, they kind of already know what we're about to teach them. So that second bucket is experience. Third bucket is intelligence. And intelligence is really about problem solving. That if you were to think about sports, which is how I think about it, as this ever mutating unsolvable puzzle, which is why Vegas and all the gambling and everything else can't figure this stuff out. If it's this ever mutating unsolvable puzzle, then intelligence is one of the mechanisms of allowing you to solve puzzles cognitively. So the example that I give, if we're going to go with a European audience right now, is think about a center midi who has to identify where to make that through pass. Let's say the defensive back of the opponents are in like a flat back 4 formation, and you've got your 9 checking 2, and you've got your winger kind of pushing fast. And you're going, okay, do I hit the 9 in the check 2, or do I lob one over that flat back 4 to the winger who's coming on, and do I hit an angle? Like, that's a whole bunch of complicated cognitive puzzles that they have to do in live time. And some people are just better at it than others. And then the last bucket has a lot to do with things like personality. Are they a locker room guy? Are they going to be toxic? Are they poison? Are they good characters and all of that? So going back to the AIQ and that measure of sports-specific intelligence, the reason why my partner Jim Bowman and I created it was we just wanted, having been a sports psychologist for 25 years, I've never met a coach that really loves to mother F a dude. I've also never met a player who really loves to be mother effed. So one of the things that you hear a lot is they either don't know or they don't care. And the default is they don't care. And though that might be true in some circumstances, and don't care would be that 4th bucket, that personality bucket. But the third bucket, the intelligence, is they don't know. So what I know from my training as a school psychologist is sometimes people can be misdiagnosed as troublemakers, or they're in the classroom, their classroom disruptions, they've got oppositional defiant disorder, all of that kind of stuff. When what it really is it's just somebody who's struggling to keep up with everybody else because they have a learning disability. I think we've all been a part of a team at various levels where you see that one player who, like, as they're running, that one player is kind of like dragging behind, right? Like he just can't keep up. As they're doing laps, he's getting further and further behind. Well, no one would mother F that player and say, oh, he doesn't care. They would say, oh, this guy's just not physically fit, or he's not as physically capable as these other individuals. There would be this kind of known gap that we would accept. No different like in the NFL, a 360-pound offensive lineman and a 185-pound wide receiver, if you put them on the same 100-yard dash and ask them to sprint, you wouldn't even put those two in a competition because it would be such a no-brainer of who would win. So what Jim and I kind of talked about was, we said, gosh, I think we can make a lot of impact. I think we can do a lot of good if we can help people understand that some people process information to a equivalent lag as that one kid who couldn't keep up with everybody else while running laps. And if we can help them catch up, if we can kind of give them like maybe a scooter or something that gives them the ability to close the gap on that lap, then there might be less combative behavior.
I mean, that's unbelievably insightful. How does that get done for anybody that's listening? They're like, all right, what do I do? How do I do this for my athletes? How do I help them out?
Yeah, so step one is you measure the AIQ. And you use the AIQ. The AIQ has 15 data points, 4 broad abilities, 10 specific abilities, that has to do with things from a wide range, from like processing live time information, like we were talking about earlier, scanning the field or scanning the pitch and identifying where your teammates are, knowing where you are in relation to space. So there was a European football team that I was working with where their 9 had really poor spatial awareness. And spatial awareness is knowing where you are in relation to others. So I asked the 9, I said, hey, do you ever drift off sides? And the coach who was in the room started to kind of like chuckle under his breath. And the 9 goes, how did you know that? And I said, well, your spatial awareness is low. And I could see that being something where as you're watching and tracking the ball, you might just lose track of where you are. And he said, great, what's the solution there? And I said, I think I can think of 2 immediate options. One is put your body on the last defender. So that way you don't have to kind of sense where they are. You're actually having that tactile sensation. You feel where they are. And some players do that already. Like that is part of this. And when you need to create space, you kind of push off and go. But it also leads a disadvantage because if that player is marking you and you're trying to stay connected to him, right? So that was option 1. The other option that I gave to the team, to the coach and the players, I said, we could convert you to a winger. I said, maybe you're ridiculously fast and you might be a winger and therefore you're less likely to drift off sides because you'd be coming from, 10, 15 yards or 10 meters, further away from the last defender. And the player lit up and he looked at the coach and they started laughing. I said, what's so funny? And the player said, for my club team, I'm a winger. And the coach said, you know what, I think we should probably think about converting you to winger. So I have found with good data, remember garbage in equals garbage out, but good data amplifies the signal. It helps coaches make well-educated decisions. So it's funny, Fernando, you were talking about this as a talent evaluation tool, which it is. AIQ is great at assessing talent. The question is when and how often do you assess? So one element is pre-onboard, right? Before draft, before free agency, before selection, you go, hey, does this guy's cognitive profile fit what we're doing here? But there's also a post-onboard moment where you go, okay, this is our guy. Now we got to figure out what to do. Is he better off maybe like going from center midi to being, center back, or being the 9 converted to the winger, or any of those other kinds of things, or even how we gameplay. Do we play more of like an offside trap? Do we play more traditional 4-4-2 or a flat back four? Like, you can start to design your game plan, your schemes, your tactics based off of what they're cognitively good at.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.